Hi, it's Helen Tarrant. Hi there, this is Helen Tarrant and welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. Now, I wanted to share with you today some key points on how to negotiate a lease with your tenant. Now, let's say that you bought a property and it's a vacant property and you're looking at putting a new tenant into the property, and you've had a couple of people look at your property and you're wondering what is the right type of tenant for your property, and you're thinking, how do I negotiate a lease and how does the process work? So normally what happens is when you have a property, or you have a vacant property, the agent takes them through for an inspection, and then they get the tenant to submit an offer. So the offer might be the tenant is renting the property for $3,000 a month and they're paying outgoings and GST on top of that, and they want a length of 3 or 4 years plus options of 2. What they plan to do with that property, so are they planning to add say a new doorway, or they're planning to do a refurbishment, they're planning to put food, or they're planning to put their offices in there. So all of the things they put down in that proposal, so that you can say yes or no to it, and also you can come back to them and say, look, I want you to pay $3,300 a month plus GST and outgoings, or that no, I want it to be a 3-year lease rather than a 2-year lease, and I want 3-year options. You want to negotiate that with your tenant. This is where the negotiation happens, and after that happens, you actually then sign what we call the heads of an agreement. So the agent usually draws that up, and the heads of agreement is where you list all of the details of the lease, and that both yourself and the tenant signs off on it. And once it's signed off, that document actually then becomes binding. The tenant pays a deposit for it, and that document gets sent off to the solicitors. And what happens with that is that then they put it into a formal lease. Then your tenant and yourself actually signs. So that's the process of negotiating or getting to a signed lease with a new tenant. But when you're negotiating, the key things to think about is what is really important to you. So do you want a longevity tenant? Do you want a tenant that once they're there, then they're there for a long time? If the answer for that is yes, then you have to really pick and choose your tenants. So I know sometimes when you have a vacant property, you get a little bit worried and you think, okay, what if I never get a tenant? What if I in the future that I have to wait another 3 months for another tenant? I'm not prepared and I don't want to wait that long. But sometimes the right type of tenant is actually worth waiting for, because you see, having the right type of tenant means that once they're established, they're actually there for a very long time. Rather than if you pick the wrong tenant, the tenant might vacate in 2 years' time, or even in 1 year's time, because their business didn't last, or they leave after 3 years, and then you end up with more cost in that business. So sometimes it's better for you to actually wait an extra 1 or 2 months longer, but get the best type of tenants that is going to be there for the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years there for you. So be selective with your tenants. When you negotiate, think about your rent as it is now, because sometimes your tenants are starting a new business, and if they're starting a new business, you don't really want to give them the hardship of having the rent right now as well as trying to fit out the premise. So you might be saying, look, let me give them a rent-free period. So that might be 3 months, 6 months, or 2 months even, but then that allows your tenants to get in there, get used to the premise, lay it out, fit it out the way they want it, start doing some marketing, and start getting the type of their customers in there. Now, and in order to make up for that, you might then say, look, I'm going to charge you a little bit higher in rent, so I'm going to give you some more rent-free period to help you get started. Or alternatively, for you might need to pay the mortgage. If you need to pay the mortgage straight away and you're in that financial situation, then you might say to the tenant, okay, well, maybe let's start you on half rent, which allows you to still pay some of the mortgage, but gives the tenant a bit of a breather. So there's multiple options of it. And if you're a practical in the building industry, or any ways you can help out your tenant, one of the things you can consider is helping your tenant out with fit out, and that's maybe a contribution to the fit out. So you might give them a $5,000 contribution to the fit out. So that might be, they might need a new doorway, or they might need a spigot layout, or they might need plumbing or electricals done on that property, and so therefore you can give them a like a fit out incentive, which could be $5,000, or you can help them to do a particular thing on the actual property. So this way you're giving your tenant, you are working hand in hand with the tenant going in. So these are some of the incentives. Now, in terms of working out the right type of rent, now there's two ways. If you are desperate for a tenant, so you've got a vacant property, it's been vacant for some time, and you've been marketing and you go, no, I really just need a tenant, one of the things that you could do is talk to 2 or 3 different agents and say to them, hey, now what do I need to do to actually get my first dollar of rent coming in the door, so that first tenant? And for agents might go, okay, well, you might have to charge 30% less than what you're asking for. So if that's the case, then you might consider, okay, let's drop the rent to just get that tenant in. Let's not worry about the type of tenant. Let's get them in for maybe the next 6 or 12 months on a short term, and this way it pays my bills. This way I can keep everything going, and I'll just get the tenant in for now. And then in the background, I'm not going to give them a long lease, but I'll market and look for the right type of tenants. You can also do that as well. Or alternatively, you might try to get a tenant in on a really great incentive where they're getting really great rent for the first 12 months, but then the rent goes up by quite a significant chunk in the next following year 2 and year 3 as well. So that's what I call rental increases, and that's because you've given them a bit of an incentive up front as well to help them out in the first 12 months. So it's all about longevity and structuring a deal that's going to work for everybody. So there's no point structuring something and that's going to send your tenant broke. It is about working with them to achieve the ultimate outcome. So when you're negotiating, it's about back and forth, but also do it with speed. So once you get a tenant that gives you an offer or a tenant that's interested, work with them in that short amount of time to lock in the deal, because it's essential to lock in the deal, get your tenant to sign on that heads of agreement and to give you a deposit, because you don't want the tenant to be looking elsewhere, because they could be negotiating with 2 or 3 different other potential spaces, and you as a potential landlord for them, that negotiation is vital for them to look at what you're going to be like in the next 2 to 3 years, or potentially 10 or 20 years. So you want to make that as seamless as possible. And if you are going to be difficult about it, that's when you're going to lose that tenant, and that potentially could result in you not getting another tenant for another 3 months or so. So when you get it, make sure you act fast, make sure you be equitable and fair to everybody involved. Make sure that you give your tenants good incentives to get them in the first little bit, to get them in the first 3, 6 or 12 months, so they really set themselves up, and so that you can have a tenant for long term. So play the long game. Look at something that's potentially could be there for 10 years, 20 years, and really structure a deal that will be equitable in the next decade rather than the next 2 years, because the gain is always in the back end of getting a tenant rather than immediate gains front up right now. So I hope that's been helpful. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the bell for new videos. I'll be doing more videos talking about different types of leases and what you should be looking for in the leases. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.